Hello and welcome to this special video podcast. We're just finished the Dubai Game Conference. Me, John Jordan, with
Gabby Dizon,
Dizon.
Altitude Games and Alto.io.
And interestingly, Gabby, you were the first guest on our podcast back in September.
That's right. It was 6 months ago
in Helsinki, and now we're in Dubai. We get to visit nice places. Oh, and it's the end of the conference. We're having some Guinness. So cheers. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
So, an informal podcast this time, a video podcast. What do you think? 6 months on, what's happened to the blockchain game space? Yeah.
So
let's leave that.
I guess the interesting thing is that there's actually things to play now.
Yeah.
I haven't traveled much in the last 3 months before going to this conference in Dubai, and I actually spent a lot of those last 3 months playing this game called Axie Infinity by our friends in Vietnam.
You have been very active on Twitter with your love for the Axies.
Yeah. I really love that game, and I was playing that and a free-to-play game at the same time when I maybe 3-4 months ago. And the big difference is that they both had different appeals. One is a trading card free-to-play game, and Axie is like a breeding battling game. The biggest difference was that in this other free-to-play game, I spent maybe $500 in these cards until I stopped playing.
Yeah.
And with Axie Infinity, through the game loops, I was actually making money in Ether, and that was enough for me to drop this other game that I was enjoying very much to kind of concentrate on Axie. Yeah.
So you've reached the golden dream of all gamers of being paid or generating money by playing the games.
It's definitely not enough to kind of do it for a full-time living, but I now have a hobby that I truly enjoy that's making me money, which is kind of one of the promises of blockchain games, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it is interesting. So I've played Axie as well, nothing to the level that you have. And we've discussed this before, but I like it in many ways. It's obviously taking the kind of foundation of CryptoKitties and the breeding part, and then adding add the battling element, and the battling element and the breeding are kind of connected. And now they've got this new land sale coming in. I've bought some land. I think you bought some land as well. But unlike you, I've not bothered going on the Discord and finding out exactly how Axies work. So it's interesting. But you spent quite a lot of time, haven't you? Like really going through and working out why Axies are valuable and how to breed them and that kind of stuff. You have to you don't just get the money for nothing.
So what's interesting about these blockchain games that I think will work long term is that they have pretty deep game loops. I think a blockchain game where you can just come in and throw, for example, 100 Ether, and you're automatically the most powerful person in the game. I think that's incredibly demotivating, and that's not going to work for a community long term. What Axie has done well is that they've rewarded people who figure out how battles work, how the positioning works, how the different traits interact with each other to make what's a better or more valuable Axie. They have a really good scarcity model, not only in their Mystic and Origin Axies, but also in the land sale that they've performed recently. And I think they have just simply one of the best communities in crypto, not just in crypto games, but in crypto. It's a very helpful, welcoming, and they're very friendly towards getting new players. And you really see the community members go out there not only recruiting new players, getting them to understand the game, creating content, creating tools. I mean, I've never been part of a game community that's absolutely not toxic and extremely helpful.
And it's interesting, we're starting to see the first kind of games built on top of Axies. So we've had obviously you have the Kittyverse with CryptoKitties, but now I don't think we can call it the Axieverse, or there's nothing formal yet about it. But I started again very simple, like a simple racing game where you're eating sushi. It was kind of it was kind of cool. I think they're going to build it in, like all these games tend to do, build it into a prize pot. So you're paying into a prize pot and you can win kind of Ether that way. I'm not a massive fan of those kind of because they're very
I would say
kind of loops, aren't they? But
they're more kind of diversions that the community made to kind of keep themselves entertained while the team is developing more features related to the land gameplay. But I guess the really powerful thing about it is that they did not have to ask permission from the company to use those assets to create those games. And if they added some form of light betting to the game, I mean, it's hard for the company to stop them because they don't own it. And that's actually quite revolutionary, I think.
And again, this is kind of coming back to really what an inherent part of what a blockchain game is.
Yeah.
There's a definition I really like from this guy Alex van der Sand that I use in a lot of my presentations, and it's the community, the gamers own the experience and the game and the items, and the game can be changed by anyone. And to a degree we've had that before with kind of modding.
Yeah.
But just the way that kind of economic incentives are built into blockchain games.
Yeah.
You have this kind of other really interesting kind of model going on. And actually, you gave a very good kind of talk today, talking about market. Moving from like an in-app purchase model, which obviously you've worked in the past in mobile, free to play.
Yeah.
Moving to a marketplace model where, okay, you're selling an item to begin with, but then basically you're making money off the resale. You're taking your margin every time.
Yeah.
I kind of think these are the things that when I first looked at blockchain games, I was thinking, what is it about really? Mm-hmm. And it's good to see more examples, pretty much every month now of kind of successful products that are actually doing this.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of developers that are just starting into blockchain games realize how much impact those design decisions of how to monetize have on the core gameplay loop itself. So as I said earlier in my talk, if you're a mobile game developer, you're making 70% of each in-app purchase, and people are kind of salty about that because they think that they deserve 80-90%. In a marketplace model, you're probably making something close to 5%, and so you might be doing an initial item sale to your player base, but you actually want to encourage them to buy less from you and to buy more from each other. And if they buy from you, you're making almost all of that money. If they buy from each other, you're making very little amount of that money. But to grow the community and to grow your game long term, you have to encourage people to trade more with themselves, with you taking a very little cut of that. I think for a game developer, that will be very counterintuitive. If you're someone that's coming from maybe a marketplace seller from Amazon or Lazada, then it makes kind of sense. But coming from a game developer where I created these digital assets to sell them to people, only to see them trade with each other, either OTC where I get no cut or for a very little fee. That impacts game design, and that impacts your cash flow model a lot as well.
That's a good point. For someone who runs a business, that's a very good point. And I do think actually, I guess we get very focused on what's wrong with blockchain games and wallet UX and stuff, but I do kind of think the more I look at it, the more you realise how developers are really going to have to change a lot of their kind of preconceived notions about, just what a game is, how it operates, and that's kind of really fascinating because I think we all saw that with the free-to-play model in mobile, where it took developers a long time really to understand that, and even now, there's still a lot of hostility in the marketplace about how monetization kind of happens like that. But if you look back at the growth of the games industry over the last 10 years, pretty much PC hasn't grown very much at all, console hasn't grown very much at all. All the growth is from free-to-play mobile games. So quite whether we'll see, I don't know quite whether we'll see like what we're calling blockchain games being a $50 billion industry over the next 10 years. But it's not inconceivable. But it's a different sort of model, though, because as you say, it's a transactional value. So you could be selling these things multiple times. So
the interesting thing about blockchain games is that people try to use the KPIs from mobile because that's what people know. So what are the daily active users? What are retention? What's more important in blockchain games than, for example, daily active users are really the number one, number of transactions, and number two, what are the size of those transactions? I mean, if you have 10,000 users paying $1 or you have one person paying $10,000, your net economic result is the same. But for a marketplace model, for a whale to come in and, for example, spend $100,000 on the community, it has such a larger effect than someone spending $10,000 in a mobile game where, yay, I have a lot of items, I can show them off. Developers are happy because they have their whale. In blockchain games, it has such a large effect on the community when someone comes in and values the work that you've put into the game and spends a lot of money buying all of these assets because they also want to be part of this community. It actually energizes the community to do more of that, and it recycles a lot of that money because the people who have sold their items, they actually end up buying other stuff. So you see that money being recycled many times into the community, and I think that's a very powerful multiplier.
I think this is something that I've always banged on about, and it's good to see in some of the talks in the show, particularly yours, but other ones as well, talking about the value of community. And it's not all about financial value, but financial value is part of it clearly. But it is interesting that, as you say, when a whale comes into a market now, it's not just the developer going, "Wow, I've got this. How can I get this guy to spend more?"
Yeah.
It's the people. He's obviously if he's coming in and buying a whole bunch of stuff, then he's buying it off other players, and then that drives the whole kind of network effect even further, which is kind of what we want to see. Okay, so let's kind of wrap up, I guess. Where do you think we're going over the next? If we meet up again in 6 months' time, what do you think is going to happen? Is it going to be a fast burn? Is it going to be a slow burn?
So
where are we going to be?
Not exactly sure. I think you're going to see blockchain games that are, some of them are blockchain first, some of them are game first.
Yeah.
I can name drop the stuff that I'm excited about. Blanco seems pretty interesting because the team at Mythical are coming from kind of that AAA mentality where it's really polished experience first, and then maybe a small percentage of that will convert to blockchain. In a way, Reality Clash is also doing the same thing. Neon District has been on my radar since last year, and it seems like they're close to ready to showing off gameplay. And I mean, I love the aesthetic, I love the art, love the team behind it. So really looking forward to that. And yeah, there's just a lot of different games to really be excited about this year.
Yeah, I think definitely for me, it's the kind of product creates market. Good product creates market. We saw that when Supercell launched its games and Puzzle and Dragons back in the day, and that really built the free-to-play games market. And I think for blockchain, really what we have to see this year is, and I think we are seeing it, all those games you mentioned are very different sorts of games than we've seen up to this point, because those kind of games take a lot of time to build. I'm talking about Mythic again. I mean, I talk about Blancos a lot, but they spent 6 months getting their art style right. Because that game is all about the art style of those characters.
It's a very AAA thing to do, I guess.
No, and exactly. If you've worked on Call of Duty games, that's exactly like they have done what you do. So for me, that's kind of really interesting that these products. Obviously, they don't have to be big, but I guess we want to. That's how the market will be built by products coming out. It won't be anything about. I think crypto pricing doesn't really matter. Obviously, it does matter behind the scenes, but it doesn't matter to the product.
Can I plug our game as well?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
So we're developing a game called Battle Racers, and it's going to be one of the launch games on Decentraland when it launches later this year.
Which is a big deal. Decentraland going live is a big deal.
So the interesting thing about Decentraland is that we see it as a huge theme park, and we're one of the main attractions when it opens. And we're building a multiplayer racing experience where the cars are tokens that are composed of smaller tokens that make up the car parts. And that's just really exciting. We have a playable, and we can't wait to show it to people a little bit later this year.
Cool, good. Lots of good things to look forward to. So thank you very much for watching and listening to our experimental video podcast from actually not very sunny Dubai at the moment. It's quite cloudy Dubai, but we've got a
colder than expected Dubai.
Yeah, we've had a good time at the conference. So
all right, cheers.
Yes, cheers. And the Guinness is very good too.
Yeah, the Guinness is very good.